Hi guys, thank you for inviting me to share with you. I'm Gerard Scarpaci, co-founder of the Hairdressers global community, and thank you, Susan, for the introduction. I've been a hairdresser for over 30 years. I've never experienced anything quite like this, but I can tell you I've experienced lots of difficult times in my career, whether it be 9/11 or the Sandy Hurricane or our last big recession. And I know together, if we work on being the best that we can be at our craft, um, and I do believe that crisis creates creativity. I want to totally tell you guys that. Even within our own business right now, and like what's happening for you guys, switching to this live remote learning, I think it could actually be a big step forward for hairdressers. We've been supporters of online education at Hairdressers for a very long time. We've done over 500 Facebook Lives. We've done a platform called hblive.me where we offer 4 to 5 hour online classes for hairdressers. And you guys want to write that down, hblive.me, because we're offering every week a free, these are normally paid courses, but during these challenging times, every week we'll be unlocking a course for free. And that's in addition to what you're doing in school right now. We've got 4 to 5 hour long hair cutting, color, and styling classes, hblive.me. So when we're done here, you can head over there and take a free course. We've got one haircutting course free and 6 styling courses. So we're supporting you everywhere we can. Okay. Um, One of my main loves and one of the things over the years that I've developed a real passion for is razor cutting. Okay. I've gone ahead and pre-sectioned off my mannequin here. We'll talk about the sections. I've kind of separated the top from the bottom. I've cut one side already in the interest of time and also for visual learners to show what I'm going to do on the other side. This is what's called a razor bob with razor texture. I'm going to now do that on the other side. And then the second portion of this haircut will work on the top, where we'll create a curtain fringe and very loose draping layers that fall on top of everything. All right, so let's get in here. Now you can see I've started to pre-section. This is a very simple technique. I'm going to basically just take classic bob sections, which I think you guys are all familiar with, just slightly diagonal forward. Okay, I'm going to comb this hair down, and I'm going to keep it a very, very low elevation. I'm going to let my hand slide below, and I'm going to get in with the heel of my blade and what we call a closed or short stroke. So short strokes allow me to make a perimeter or an outline that's not too shredded or piecey. Now, if I go back in and do a little bit of slicing, I can pinch that hair together and I can create a little more separation before we move on. I'm going to move up the head now, and I'm going to use both of those techniques. I'm going to use heel strokes to create the line, and I'm going to use slicing to create the invisible layers to get the same effect that we have here. Okay, I'm going to move in a little bit here. Okay, coming through. Fine teeth of the comb, slight over direction towards the center, and a real strong tension with the fingers. The up and down movement of the blade is called the stroke. And you see it's just like butter. Okay? Now look at the way I hold the razor. This is what many of you would think of like a barber razor. Now, in this case, I work with an unguarded razor. There are also guards that go over this. This is the Hairbrain Pro razor that I designed. If you need to use a guard for state reasons or whatever reason, there's a guard that goes over it. I work without a guard and I work relatively safely, but it's really up to everyone to figure out what works for them. If you look at the way I hold it, I just want you to think about the peace sign. You want to hold it in the peace sign very deep, all the way in like so. You put your thumb on the side of the shaft, you push the tang towards the inside, and you pinch on the other side, and then you can have real control. Just like learning, as many of you guys have how to control a shear or a scissor, you can control a razor. Now, you can also use the more standard razor. Just think about these two parts. They're exactly the same, right? It's just about getting them to move up and down. What I like is the handle here gives me way more control and fluidity. But razor cutting is razor cutting. You can use any type of razor. Section come through. Use the wide side of the comb to take nice clean sections. Always clip your hair away neatly so you can work in a clean way. Now I let this fall down, and I can look at what I did on the other side here. I put some pre-invisible layering in using the slicing technique. Coming in here, and I layer it first. So you use the slicing technique to layer through the hair first. You can see how much that takes away. And I'm I'm going about 50% of the way, halfway through the hair. Okay? Now I'm going to come back and cut my line, and I'm going to open my stroke a little bit larger than I did on my first section. And what that does is it starts to make a little bit of graduation on the edge of the haircut, textured graduation. Continuing through. You always want to make your strokes a little bit shorter or more closed behind the ear so that you don't lose the corner of your bob. Look at how pretty and soft that is right off the bat. Continuing to work my way up, about 1/2 inch wide, slightly angled sections. First, we do the slicing. That's like layering it first. So you look at the weight you took out from here, and I want to do the same thing here. Elevate it out just a little bit. Each time I do it for this particular cut, I'm going about halfway through. So here's my fingers, here's the baseline. I want to be halfway between the baseline and the root so that I get a nice layered look. So right now we're just working on a very modern razor bob. We're going to add layering to it and turn it into, I guess the buzzword is kind of like a French girl look. And you'll see what we mean here. Using great technique and creating something very modern, soft, pretty, and very wearable. So creating that nice textured bob through the bottom. Continuing up. I'm working with an Erica mannequin from Pivot Point. I know a lot of you guys are home working. With Hairbrains, we work very closely with Pivot Point. They're one of our brand sponsors for all the education that we do. And I do want to let you guys know that they're offering up to 25% off all educational tools on their site, pivotpointshop.com. And, you know, again, that's to really help people get mannequins, tripods, whatever you need. I'm sure some of you guys have them already from school, but if you need extra, I highly recommend checking it out and checking out their sale. Over directing slightly back, and always making the stroke shorter behind the ear. And again, you can see that very, very soft. I can do a little more tailoring by just pinching the hair and getting a little bit more separation if I feel like I need it. Okay, last section in the back, and then we'll move into the sides. Again, good tension. Hold that hair low, then elevate it out a little bit. Look at where the baseline is and go about halfway through to get the right amount of layering and weight removal. These layers are invisible. That's what's making it contemporary. There is not really like a geometric line in there, which I do believe is very important to learn. And I think before you guys do get into this, this is more aspirational. You know, I didn't start using a razor till about 10 years into my career. I really mastered all the fundamental haircuts with scissors and shears, and then started to razor cut. So this is aspirational. I think some of you will definitely be gravitating towards it because you like to see things in a very organic way, and you want to be a sculptor. And that's one of the things that I like. So I'm lifting and checking and taking a little more weight out right there. So now I've got both sides in the back, a graduated kind of nape, and lots of textured invisible layers. Now you can see what's happening on the side here. I'm going to now do that same thing on the side here. So I'm going to continue my line, and then I'm going to put the face frame in. Turn around a little this way. So now I'm just going to take my line through. I'll take about half this hair. Hair is a little thinner over the ears, so I can take a little bit of a bigger section. I don't want to do too much slicing here because I could get a hole or too much weakness. So I'm going to first put my baseline in, and I'm going to come in with a very closed or short stroke. Important to check my balance because it could very easily end up a lot longer or shorter on one side than the other. And I'm trying to avoid that, although it can happen. So just take it slow and check as you go. Take it slow and check as you go. Check beneath the ear. Okay, so far so good. And continue your line. Now, I'm not going to take too much weight out of this. As we said, it's over the ear, but I'll put a few like little slices right here. Nothing behind the ear where I might get a hole. This next section, I can drop down This guy I can take some weight out of. I'm going to elevate, make sure my outline drops away. And again, we're going to do that halfway weight removal using the slicing technique. It's like the blade just goes straight in like a key in a lock and makes these invisible, contemporary, soft ghost layers. Then I come back, I get right back onto my line. Since it's my second section, my stroke can be a little bit larger. That tapers it or adds a little more graduation. A little bit larger. But at the very front, I'll close it down so it doesn't get too thin or weak. Okay, at this stage, I've got my baseline in. I want to check length. Okay, so far so good. Now you can see on this side, I also kind of face framed it in preparation for blending to the top. So I want to do that now on this side. Take a diagonal back section, comb the hair down and forward. I want to keep the corner as is, but I want to come from the corner of the eye and start to go short to long to open this up around the face. Now, you could, if you wanted to keep a bob and you weren't going into layers on the top, you might not need to do this. But for the look that I'm doing, the real French girl with some fringe and some texture, this is what we want to say. So I think I'm able to take questions, guys. So if you want to ask questions, my wife Kelly is filming. She's getting all the angles here. We do this a lot. We've done this is my second live today and probably my sixth or seventh this week. Just like most of you guys, we're home in quarantine and we're trying to be as productive as we can and really connect with our peers, connect with the hairdressing community. So I've been doing lots of education. If you're not familiar with Hairbrained, we've got an Instagram page called Hairbrained_official. We have a Facebook page. And on both those places, we're doing constant education during these trying times to really try to keep people inspired and to try to create creativity out of crisis. Okay, so now I've got both sides where I want them. I'm going to now drop down my bangs or my fringe, whatever your preferred term is. So that's a triangle. Now let's look at the top. I pre-sectioned kind of a horseshoe that dips down in the back. I've got a triangle for the fringe, a little kind of bow tie in the middle here, and a semicircle in the back. Now all this is going to be much floatier and layered, and it's going to drape over the shape. But we're going to start off with our curtain bang.
Gerard, we have a question coming in. How often do you change your razor blade?
I am very particular. I like a short blade for every haircut. I like a new blade for every haircut. Now, you can probably, some people can go 2 to 3 haircuts with one blade. I don't. I like a new blade for every single haircut.
Why?
Because I like it sharp and precise. And I like to be able to, I adjust what's going to happen. I press harder or I press more gently. It's just like I like a sharp pair of scissors. I like a sharp razor blade. Okay, so here you can see my hand is gently sliding through from a shorter point in the center to a longer point by the cheekbone.
What razor are you using?
This is the Hairbrained Pro razor. It's a custom-made razor. They're currently sold out. Obviously, we're having a little bit of a hard time restocking, but we do have what's called the Feather Plie and the Feather Flexion. Those are available at our online store, which is called Hairbrained Pro.
And also the feather styling.
And also the feather styling razor, which is this is probably the most common razor that people have, and it's a great quality. Feather styling, HP Pro. We've got a whole razor section. You go to hairbrain.pro. And again, in these difficult times, we're trying to do our best with pricing, and offer the best deals possible with the quality that we have. We're a business too. We've got 7 employees. We're trying to keep everyone employed. As I keep saying, if you're out of work and you don't have money, then you definitely shouldn't be buying anything. But, if you're still kind of have the means, we've definitely got great tools available. We've also got great education, both for free and for pay at hblive.me.
Is it harder to do a clean cut with a guard using a razor?
It's not harder, it's just different. It just feels different. The difference is you can't feel the hair. It's like eating a piece of candy with the wrapper on it. You can't really taste it. You get the general idea. The blade on the hair, you can really feel it. Now, again, I'm not someone who's going to tell you go against state law or anything like that. You have to find out what works for you. But I can guarantee you that you can be safe with the tool. It just takes practice. It's just as safe to me as a scissor once you really learn how to use it and hold it. So the guard for me is not about my safety. It's whether or not a state feels that you have to do it. Okay, so there you can start to see this idea of the curtain, how it kind of pushes. I can do a little more detailing there, but I'm shaping it with my hands. Now we start to drop down one of these sides.
While you're doing that, are there certain situations where you'd rather cut hair dry with a razor or have it be wet?
For me, there's never a situation where I want to cut hair dry with this razor, with an unguarded razor. It pulls the cuticle too much, and even if the haircut comes out looking great, you'll have an unhappy client because it hurts. It may damage the hair, it may not damage the hair, but it'll definitely pull the hair, right? So I like to keep the hair damp. I have been using rinseless refresh a lot. I'm an old Aveda guy. I've been around the Aveda world for a long time. I get all the new products. I like the rinseless refresh as kind of a cutting agent, and also it kind of styles the hair as I cut it, which I think is great. All right, so I'm taking this area, and I'm actually connecting it with the bang or the fringe. I'm bringing it forward and over, and I'm continuing this angle that we just created with the fringe.
Can you explain the sectioning?
Okay, which part of the sectioning?
Maybe start from the beginning.
Okay, so let me just finish this and then I'll show you the sectioning on the opposite side. So adding some slicing in here, very important. Very important to slice on the outside of this section as well, because what that'll do is it'll let it really wrap in here. Okay, so what did we have? We had a curved horseshoe, knowing that this triangle here was going to be part of the bang. This was going to be some of the draped layers that fall over the side, and this is going to be the draped layers that fall over the back. The underneath was cut very, very simply using classic bob sections, but really manipulating the hair through the razor. Top is also being cut very simply. I'm just taking horizontal sections or vertical, depending on your perspective. If you look at it this way, it's vertical. If you look at it this way, it's horizontal. I'm over directing these forward, and I'm elevating and removing weight using slicing, and again, cutting literally a concave, meaning it's shorter in the center and gets longer as it works out. And that's going to drape over my little razor bob shape from the underneath. But really important is this invisible slicing. These are what we like to call ghost layers. Putting these right in here and working through.
Can this technique be used on naturally curly hair? And if so, would the tension differ?
A razor can be used on any type of hair. It's really the person, the rotation of the blade, and how you use it. The tension of holding the hair, for me, is always the same. So if the hair was quite curly, I would have to I'd have to judge how much that hair shrinks. This is where you really have to understand hair, right? If I'm cutting with tension, it's one of the good reasons to cut curly hair dry, is because you can see exactly what you're getting. But with a razor like this, you have to work wet. So I'd have to say, okay, I'm going to cut this much off, but I've analyzed the texture and I know that means it's going to shrink to here. Now that takes a lot of skill. So I'm not saying razor cutting curly hair with a razor is easy. It takes a lot of skill. And there may be better reasons to cut curly hair dry so you don't have to worry about losing too much length. So working the same idea here, using the underneath fringe to work from short to long, and using slicing, especially on the outside. That's super important because I want to get that outside piece to disappear. I could do a little bit more on that. So I'm coming back here. This is what makes this blend in visually to this on the sides.
What are your most used Aveda products right now?
Rinseless refresh, as I'm using here. I use that a lot. I've been using the the moisturizers, the Tulasara face mask. You know, now that I'm home in quarantine, like most of you guys, I'm really taking good care of my skin. So I've been doing morning rituals and night rituals. In the salon, you know, I worked with Aveda for many years, so all the classic products are a lot of my favorites. I love Foamoliant, I love flaxseed aloe gel, I love air control. You know, they've always worked for me, and they still work to this day.
What is the purpose of ghost layers?
It's to remove weight and to create movement without cutting the hair too short. So you've got some ghost pieces, shorter pieces inside the hair that give it more lightness and movement, but then you've got the length for versatility. So that's really what that's about. And there's a lot of ways to do that. It can be done with scissors, it can be done in dry cutting, but the idea is to have one shape on the ends, like I'm creating here, short to long, which is basically a concave. Yeah. Now, if I just left it like that, it's a bit thick and clunky. So I can put this invisible structure within the superstructure of some hidden pieces. And then this very important piece on the outside here, coming back around and filtering this hair in so that it can fall in and melt into the sides.
How do you determine to give a client a razor cut?
Again, you know, since I feel that if you really understand razor cutting, you can razor cut a lot of different textures. It's not for me based on the texture. It's based on the end result. If I think someone would look really pretty as a very light blonde, I know I'm going to use, you know, high lift or enlightener. If I know, you know, someone's going to look very pretty or look their best with a very organic, textured, kind of loose look, then I choose a razor. If I think they're going to look better with a structured, angular, geometric look, then I choose a scissor. So you choose the right tool for your outcome. So here you can kind of see, doing a little bit more checking and elevating, adding a little bit more slicing, ghost layering through. Try to do it in a very balanced way.
Could you apply the ghost layer technique using scissor?
Yeah, in a certain respect you can. You can use deep point cutting. I can show you a few things here. I do use scissors as well. So a similarity would be to come in and to work inside the hair like that, or to let it bend over your fingers and point in a little more deeply. So yes, it's, you know, every tool can be used in a lot of versatile ways. Okay, we're onto the crown here.
And just to recap, the sections that you just took out, those were all pulled forward?
Forward and upward. So everything in the fringe was held at natural fall to build the bang or the fringe, and then everything above it was elevated. And then I was just cross-checking. You'll see they get longer and longer as they go this way. And then when I pull them out, straight out from the head like this, they should feel concave, shorter at the top, longer at the bottom. Now I'm going to take that as my guide, and I'm going to pivot around to connect the crown. I love the questions, guys. Again, you know, other than hair cutting, I'd like to say, you know, for me personally, I know that this is a difficult time, but I keep talking about creativity during crisis. You know, a lot of the incredible things that are being developed right now, the connectivity, the caring for the planet, I think maybe people will actually think, oh, you know what? Maybe we were right. Maybe everyone out there who's saying we need to stop over consuming, we need to stop raping our planet and start caring for it. I think people right now are having that realization. And also realizing that, you know what, we can live with less. And I know that's not something anybody wants to hear in our society because it's all about mass consumption. But the truth is, you know, if you're able to get through this time, you might realize to yourself, maybe there are some of those things that I don't need. Yeah. And I think that can be all very positive. And I also, what I'm finding, especially in my world as a kind of hairdressing community person, is the connectivity is there. And you know what else? The negativity is gone. You know, when you do mass things like we do at Hairbrains, we sometimes are doing education all over the world on Facebook or Instagram. And, you know, you'd get the hater, you know, making negative comments. I'm not seeing that right now. Nobody got time for that. It's about love, sharing, connecting, growing, being the best we can. So just trying to put a bright spin on a very challenging time. So pivoting around into the back, I use the guide from the side here, continuing. When I bring this out, I'm just over directing to the previous. I find the shortest piece and I work out to the longest piece.
When do you use razor on a men's cut? And when would it not be a good idea?
Again, it's a design choice. It's like saying, when do you use a pencil? When do you use a pen? Okay. The end result, or when do you use tint and when do you use bleach or enlightener? It's based on your desired end result. So to me, when I want something loose, organic, textured, a lot of separation, not very angular. So if that's what a man is looking for, then I would use a razor on a man. If it's meant to look more precise and angular and tight, then I use a scissor. It's like the difference between a pencil and a pen, or tint and high lift. It's just a tool. It doesn't. It just does certain things certain ways. Coming out now on this side. Again, looking for that guide from short to long, and slicing through. Some more of that invisible slicing there, and definitely a little on the underneath. My sections now are just pivoting around the crown, being over directed to the previous. I'm in that little half moon shape that was in the crown, coming from my shortest point out to my longest point, using the guide from the top and the front.
Do you ever use a razor with a guard?
I do, yes. Sometimes I'll be teaching a class and every single person in the class has a guard, and I'll show them how they can be done with a guard. Or sometimes I just feel like doing something different. My preference, so the only reason why I don't like a guard, this is sharper. It's like telling me, do you want to use your scissors a little bit duller? I usually say no. You can, as you can see, I've been completely safe with this. Oh, no, sorry, just kidding. You can learn to become safe, but of course you have to follow whatever your state rules are, and you'll have to find out what they are for yourself, because honestly, I don't know.
Is cross-checking with a razor the same as you would using a scissor?
So what you're going to see here is after I've razored through, I am going to switch to my scissor or my shear to do a little bit of checking. Now I call the checking sealing the ends. As I've been saying, I don't think what I'm showing you guys here is basic hair cutting. I don't think it's complicated hair cutting, but I don't think it's basic. I think you should start aspiring to do this kind of hair cutting once you've gotten to the point that you really are an instinctive hair cutter in your shapes. So if I needed to do a lot of cross-checking just to balance my haircut, which you will as you're learning, one side's too long, one side's too round, one side's too square. When you get a little bit past that point and haircutting is just natural and intuitive to you, you can start to work with the razor, and then you're checking. I'm not saying don't check. Your checking becomes a refining or an enhancement. It's not, now here's some cross-checking though. If I bring this down, I can look, but really what I'm looking for is to see how much slicing there is and if it's consistent from side to side.
Do you prefer men's or women's haircuts?
I prefer women's haircuts. I absolutely. I started my career as a barber, believe it or not. 30 years ago, I went to barbering school because I was just a little bit embarrassed to maybe become a ladies' hairdresser at that time. But that's what I really wanted to do, was do women's hair. And luckily, within 2 years of being a barber, I got an apprenticeship at Vidal Sassoon, and I got past that idea of being whatever embarrassed, and really never wanted to cut men's hair again. And 30 years ago, barbering school was not cool. It kind of was a scary place for me, to be honest with you. Now it's changed completely. You know, barbering has become very cool, very forward-thinking, a great business, very modern. But the truth is, I prefer cutting women's hair a lot.
How long does it take usually for a haircut with a razor?
How long you got? That's what I always say. You know, when the reality for you guys, when you get out there in the salon world, you know, if I have an hour to do a haircut, I'll find out a way to do an hour haircut. If I've got 20 minutes to do a haircut, I'll figure out a way to do a 20-minute haircut. That's, again, when you own your craft. And that's the reality of working behind the chair for most people. So you have to learn how to be versatile. and how to, within an hour or less, be able to do great haircuts. In the perfect world, and what I do, I still do clients, guys. And unfortunately, they're all in New York, and I'm in California, at least for the foreseeable future. But I book on the hour. It's kind of a treat for me to do clients, although I do them a few times a month. I book on the hour. I do all my own shampoos. I do all my own blow dries, and I ring them out myself on my phone. So that's the relationship with them. Now, I can't say my career has always been that way. I've worked in salons with 100 other hairdressers and fancy coffee machines and everything. I've done pretty much all of it. And you have to find out what works for you. But right now, I love the intimate experience of just being one-on-one with my guests. So now getting into a little more detailing, the whole shape is in. This is probably some of my final razor stuff, is just to come behind where the bang or the fringe sits and open her up a little bit more right here. So what that does is allows that hair to sit in and open. I love, this is the Frenchness of the haircut, the French bob, certain je ne sais quoi, loose and sexy and kicky, textured. That's why I chose a razor.
How long did it take for you to feel confident in your craft?
Still working on it every day. Working on it right now at this particular moment. I felt like I understood fundamental haircutting when about 5 or 6 years. I became a teacher pretty seriously about 5 or 6 years into my career, and that helped me a lot because I really had to explain and understand what I was doing. But, it's a craft that you have to constantly practice every single day. If I don't cut hair for a few weeks, I'm a little less confident. It's like something that you have to constantly work on. You can't just memorize the recipes and think you're a great chef. If you cook once a year, chances are, I don't care how many recipes you've memorized, you're not going to be a great chef. You got to keep doing it. You got to keep your hands in hair. So this is what I was talking about. This is the cross-checking. And it's more about making sure the ends aren't too thin or weak and that they're consistent. I bring all the hair basically out at 90 degrees, and I just look through the ends here. See, I don't need that piece. That little extra thin piece, that's not going to make the haircut better. So that's what I'm looking for when I check. Not trying to fix my shape or anything that might be a mistake, hopefully. Although sometimes, because I'm working without a mirror, I might be a little bit off balance, but I think I'm doing pretty good today. But really, I'm looking at density in the ends of the hair. And corners. You see that little corner? I want to soften that corner. Keep the questions coming, guys. I'll talk to you about anything you want to know. I'm an open book. In the meantime, if you're not following Hairbrained on social media, please look for us on Instagram. My own personal Instagram is my name, Gerard Scarpaci. I put a lot of personal content up there, all hair related. But then our global community is Hairbrained. I'm the co-founder of Hairbrained along with Randy Taylor.
Do you find that cutting with a razor took about the same amount of time as cutting with a scissor?
It can. It really depends on the hair. It depends on what I'm going for, and how much time I have. Again, I've never been a fast hair cutter, and I don't really try to be, but I've also been in the salon on a Saturday with 2 people sitting there giving me dirty looks, and not really, because my clients all love me, but I know that there are ways to go a little faster and ways to go a little slower, and you'll learn that. Well, it only comes with time. I can't give you any little trick of how to do it.
How do you handle calyx with the razor cutting?
Well, the first thing is don't cut them too short, no matter what kind of cutting you're doing, or cut them short enough that they don't matter. If you're doing a fade, a calyx doesn't really matter. But the other thing is to be able to read and say, okay, I can't cut it any shorter than this, or I have to take it off completely. The other thing is that that ghost layering inside of a growth direction or a calyx can really help make it more manageable, because you're kind of taking some of the will out of the hair.
How often do you use your scissor versus your razor?
I use them on almost every haircut together, behind the chair with my clients. I mean, sometimes I'm teaching, like you can show these guys. I've done a series all week here. These ladies right here, those are all scissor cut. And those were all on Hairbrained's Instagram and some of it's on our Facebook and some of it's on my page. They're all like an hour-long lesson that I've taught this week. So unless there's a specific reason to just do scissor, I almost always combine the two together. I usually do a lot of the basic shape like I did here with the razor, and then I do some of the refining with the scissor like I'm doing now. Again, unless somebody wants something really blunt and they're very particular about having something angular, but I find that less and less common these days. People want movement, texture, and lightness. So there's my little French girl. Put on a little bit more refinish here, rinseless refresh, and we'll let this dry naturally so we don't have just the noise of the blow dryer. But basically, you can see that's the way I like hair to look anyway. This was shag I did with the scissor yesterday, and same idea, putting in product and just letting it air dry. Here's a layered bob. We got all the girls here. Here's a layered bob using the scissor or the shear, again, letting it air dry. That's the texture that I try to encourage. I find 80 to 90% of people have movement and texture in their hair, and they come to me to help bring it out with a great haircut. So that's what I'm always trying to accomplish.
With your French girl, where should the perimeter be?
Well, the perimeter is the length, so it's the length that you want it to be. In this case, I went right to the base of the hairline. I'd say this technique would work to about shoulder length, and then it would start to feel a bit more like a shag, or what people are calling a shag these days. When you bring the length closer to the hairline, it looks more like a shaggy bob like you have here, and that's when you start to get the French girl feel.
Do you prefer shorter cuts or longer cuts?
I'm open to both. Here's a longer cut that I did. This is a long concave layer. What I do prefer is bringing out movement and texture in the hair and making hair look organic as opposed to robotic or mechanical. So length doesn't matter to me. It can be short and textured. It can be long and textured. That's what matters to me.
Any tips on how to increase your followers?
Well, you know what? That's a good segue. Let's sit down and talk about social media. So any last questions on hair cutting? Because we're going to have a little chat now. I've got a chair and everything. Any last questions on hair cutting?
I don't see any coming in, but we'll be sure to let you know if they do. And in the meantime, how do you increase your followers? What are some tips?
Don't worry about increasing your followers. Worry about creating content that has value to someone that you care about. So in your mind, think of someone. Like, what do I think of? I think of you, a passionate young hairdresser who wants to have an incredibly successful career, wants to learn as much as you possibly can, has respect for the masters that they've gone before you. And then I try to create as many things that you would find as valuable, and then those people will gravitate towards you.
What about in terms of using like specific hashtags?
Doesn't matter to me. I never did it. We didn't really do it at Hairbrained. We created our own hashtag, just hashtag Hairbrained, hashtag Craft Hairdresser. And then we focused on, number one, creating content that was valuable and inspiring, reaching out to like-minded people to tell them how incredible their work was and reposting it, what we call curating. We've never used those techniques because to me, 100 people that really understand you and care about you and are local are way more valuable than 1 million people that just followed you because you used the right hashtag. And we built a business on that, a business that employs 7 people. And over the years, we could have more followers. There are other media or trade magazines that have way more followers than we do, but that doesn't really matter because we've got a deeply connected, engaged audience that knows us personally and trusts us. It's about trust.
How do you use social media to engage your guests?
So with guests, you have to think, again, the question is always what is valuable to them. Not what's valuable for me, what do I need to pitch, what do I need to sell, what do I need to do? It's what's valuable to your guests. So right now it might be, and this could be controversial, but let's just say it, how to touch up your own roots. You're going to be home for 8 weeks and I care about you. I want to just show you some tips on how to do your own roots at home while you're social distancing. Now, again, that doesn't mean they're not going to come back to you. I truly believe that means they're going to appreciate you more for caring about them. Or styling. Cutting may be a little scary. I see some hairdressers trying to teach their followers their clients how to cut their own hair. It's a little scary one, a lot of disclaimers with that, but you have to think what is valuable to this guest. It's called your avatar. Who is your ideal guest? Like I said, who is the ideal hairdresser? We call them a craft hairdresser. And what's valuable to them? Who's your ideal client? And what's going to be valuable to them? That's the question you need to ask yourself.
Would you still do a razor cut on someone who doesn't want to style their hair every day?
Absolutely. That's the best haircut to do. You can see that's my whole way of cutting hair. None of these was a brush used. It's just product and a great haircut. Razor cutting done beautifully is about letting the hair dry naturally. It doesn't mean you can't do more. You can blow dry it, flat iron it, round brush it, crimp it, twist it, pin it, zip it, reverse it. But great razor cutting to me is the most natural form of styling. So guys, I mean, the big message that I want to deliver to you is, number one, this is a unique crisis, but it's still a crisis. We've been through them before. We've been through recessions. I'll tell you my own personal story. When I opened my first salon, it was in 2001, August of 2001, in Brooklyn, 6 miles away from the World Trade Center. Bustling area, door to door, 6 miles, 3 train stops. I thought this is going to be great. All the foot traffic, I'm going to be so busy here. Put a lot of money into making the salon beautiful. Did my opening party on August 11th, 2001. We all know what happened on September 11th, 2001. New York just dried up. There was nobody out there. People were fearful. I had to get creative. I still had to move forward. That was about the time where I started to think about, it was pre-social media, but I started thinking about email marketing, making sure I had a great website, and getting into the digital world. If it wasn't for that crisis, I know I wouldn't have the success that I have now through Hairbrained, because that made me go from just being a hairdresser to being a hairdresser who used computers, that's what we called them at the time, to then being super open to email marketing and then super open to social media.
Do you encourage having a separate account for your professional profile?
You know, yeah, stuff on your business profile that people shouldn't see, then yes. But the truth is, if you are professional in your personal life and conduct yourself like a mature person, people like to see that. They don't mind seeing a picture of your baby. They don't mind seeing a picture of your Christmas party. If it's, hairdresser gone wild, that's going to be bad for you. But in reality, I do believe that a little bit of personality, and people want to connect with you for who you are, as long as who you are isn't a complete mess.
Do you have a schedule for consistent posting?
The schedule we have at Hairbrained is going to be different than what anyone else has. We post every hour on the hour across multiple platforms for about 10 to 12 hours a day. That's because we're a global community for hairdressers. But whatever you can commit to, stick to. So if the only thing you can commit to right now is one piece of valuable content a week, you stick to it for as long as you can. If you can commit to 4 pieces, 5 pieces, 1 a day, 1 an hour, just like most things in life, it's about the 20-mile march, meaning you're committed to march 20 miles a day, whether it's rainy and you want to sleep in bed, or if it's a beautiful day and you're like, well, today I can do 40 and tomorrow I'll skip. That doesn't work. It's 20 miles every single day. And that's what social media is all about.
How do you tell your clients about your social media?
I'm going to give you a great example. Usually when people sit in your chair and you're having a consultation, especially new people that don't already know you or follow you, they're going to show you pictures on their phone. And if they don't, you should ask them to. And when they do, you should then take out your phone and you should go to your personal professional page that has a lot of great hair, and you should be able to then counter and say, oh, you mean like this? This is a look that I just did on my client, Sandy. It's what I think would look great with what you're asking for. How do you like that? And while you're there, why don't you follow me? So the whole idea here is to take them away from their device onto your device showing work that you've actually done. And when they see that work, 9 times out of 10, they're going to just say, oh, I should be following you. This is great. Or you can say, hey, why don't you follow me? And you can see all the great work that I do.
What do you like to post the most? Haircuts, color, styling?
Based on what gets the most. So Hairbrained is different. For Hairbrained, the things that get the most engagement and highest numbers are creative colors or things that make you think about your craft, videos, very important. Now for you, again, don't try to find a trick or a gimmick. Think, who's my ideal client? You only need 300 dedicated clients that would never dream of leaving you to be incredibly successful in this industry. You have those 300 people coming to you every 6, 8 weeks, doing multiple services, you're going to be incredibly successful. So you almost have to be picky because you don't want the wrong people. So you have to think, who is my ideal client and what is the message I want to send to them? How many times a week can I do it? What do I want to show them? Done? Oh, we're ending? I'm getting a message here. Go ahead, Cal, tell me. All right, guys, so I think it looks like we're about to wrap up. I want to thank you for spending time with me while I'm here in quarantine in California. I hope you enjoyed the haircut, a little bit of tips on social media. Please follow Hairbrained on Instagram and Facebook. And if you want to check out some more education, go to hblive.me. Or if you're looking for tools, check out hairbrained.pro. Peace out, be safe, and shelter in place. And hopefully that'll get us through this in 14 or 15 days.